So good morning, everybody, to the 18th AGM of AmCham. And the notice was given that this meeting will be taking place today, the 13th of May, via video conference. But in the room, we've got several board members, including our host, Daniel Ngumi, who has kindly agreed to host us at the ALN premises, which is where we are. And I'm also joined by Susan Sawe. We also have our company secretaries, Scribe Services, and our auditors, Baker Tilly, in the room. So a warm welcome to all of you to this 18th AGM. But before we carry on, I would first like our company secretaries to confirm whether we've got duly executed proxy forms and note and confirm the presence of quorum and adoption of the agenda. So Scribe, please confirm.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. Good morning, members. Yeah, I confirm that the meeting is correct. Thank you.
Okay, so we've got quorum. Duly executed proxy forms are already received. And then we can move on to item number 2, which is to confirm the minutes of the 2024 AGM, which we held last year. So I'll ask again Scribe to present the highlights of those minutes so that then we can confirm them.
Studio, if you could display this. But Chair, just to confirm that our previous meeting was held on the 18th of June, 2024, and we had 36 members present, opening with opening remarks, and then we did approve the minutes of the previous AGM, and then went through the President's report for the year 2023, which covered the highlights on what happened, and including the various initiatives as we'll be proceeding to next. Then we received the CEO's report. Following that, the fourth agenda was on the presentation on the audited financial statements for the year 2023. This report was presented by the Treasurer, Ms. Susan Sawe, and then the auditors read the opinion, which was unqualified. The fifth agenda item was on the election of directors, and following an election process, and the members voted, and we had Mr. Daniel Ngumi, Ms. Caroline Mukira, and Ms. Elizabeth Kimkung re-elected as directors of AmCham. Then the final agenda item was the reappointment of auditors, and Messrs. Baker Tilly were reappointed to continue up to the conclusion of this AGM. Those are the highlights, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the minutes then, the highlights have been presented, and can I request for a proposer to propose the adoption of those minutes?
I propose.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Can I ask for a seconder?
I second. Angela Nganga.
Angela, thank you very much. So the minutes of the AGM held on the 18th of June, 2024 are adopted. Board members and members, we move on to agenda number 3, which is to receive and consider the report of the AmCham Board President for the year 2024. And that happens to be my report. So allow me a few minutes to just go through the report for the year 2024. So once again, good morning, members of the board and fellow AmCham members. Welcome to, again, our 18th annual general meeting. And I have to say it's my privilege to present the 2024 AmCham Board President's Report. Members, this past year has been transformative for our chamber, as you'd recall. We continue to advance our mission of harnessing commercial relationships for economic prosperity. On US-Kenya relations, the bilateral economic partnership continues flourishing, despite all the noise that you hear at the moment with the change in government. The total value of US goods trade with Kenya was $1.5 billion in 2024, and that's quite an increase over the last few years. US goods imports to Kenya were $782.5 million, up 61.4% from 2023. Kenyan goods exports to the US in 2024 were $737.3 million, which was slightly down 17.5% from 2023. The US goods trade surplus with Kenya was $45.2 million in 2024. But since the introduction of AGOA's tariff benefits in 2001, Kenya's exports to the US have grown by an average of 10% annually. President William Ruto's state visit to the US in May of last year marked a significant milestone in commemorating 60 years of US-Kenya diplomatic relations and advancing a strategic partnership focused on trade, investment, economic development, digital transformation, and sustainable finance. This high-level engagement built on the momentum from the AmCham Business Summit and culminated in the US-Kenya Business Forum convened by the US Chamber in Washington, D.C., where nearly $2 billion in new commitments were announced from various member companies and attended by US Vice President Kamala Harris and Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo. AmCham's 35-member delegation, led by Board Vice President Angela Ng'ang'a and board members Philana Mugenyi, Daniel Ngumi, Eric Angula, and CEO Maxwell Okello. They participated in the White House state arrival ceremony, attended the state dinner, and various fora, including an exclusive breakfast meeting with President Ruto, cabinet secretaries, Ambassador Whitman, US Chamber leadership, and select global CEOs of American companies. AmCham also collaborated on a crucial Capitol Hill roundtable discussion with congressional leaders and private sector representatives, which focused on shaping US trade legislation, advancing public-private partnerships, and strengthening bilateral relations. If I highlight the 2024 key achievements, firstly, financial performance. Members, I'm pleased to report that despite a challenging operating environment, AmCham demonstrated a remarkable resilience and dynamism. Our revenue doubled to $294.4 million from $147.2 million in the previous year. This impressive growth was driven by a 145% increase in events and sponsorship income through the AmCham Business Summit, complemented by a 13% rise in membership income. However, it's important to note that effective July 1st, 2023, all member clubs and trade associations are considered to carry on business activities with gross receipts, excluding joining fees, welfare contributions and subscriptions classified as business income. Consequently, the Chamber incurred a tax liability of 23.3 million shillings in 2024, resulting in a surplus after tax of 34.7 million, down from 101.9 million in 2023. Secondly, membership growth and engagement. Our community continued to expand with 75 new member companies joining in 2024. With a portfolio of more than 300 businesses as members, AmCham stands as a thriving and dynamic business network. We hosted 85 fora, meetings, events throughout the year, providing our members with valuable insights and networking opportunities. Thirdly, investment and trade promotion. Our crowning achievement in 2024 was undoubtedly the AmCham Business Summit. This high-profile international gathering eloquently showcased AmCham's convening power and demonstrated a strong and enduring bond between the US, Kenya, and the East Africa region. The 2023 summit, our largest to date, attracted over 1,300 delegates from 20 countries, with over 400 companies represented, of which more than 160 were American firms. It provided a premier platform for engaging and transformative discussions on bilateral trade and investment opportunities. More than 500 business-to-business meetings advanced significant commercial deals, some of which were announced and signed during President Ruto's state visit to the US. We were honored to welcome an extraordinary assembly of keynote speakers that included His Excellency President Dr. William Ruto, US Secretary of Commerce, Honorable Gina Raimondo, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry, Honorable Rebecca Miano, and US Ambassador Meg Whitman. The private sector was well represented by prominent captains of industry, such as Luis Ortega, President of Coca-Cola Africa, and Brad Smith, Vice Chair and President of Microsoft Corporation, amongst others. AmCham facilitated several high-level engagements that significantly advanced East Africa and US commercial relations. Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo, held strategic meetings with President William Ruto, Cabinet Secretaries Rebecca Miano, and Elio Dowalo, Minister for Information, Communication, and Digital Economy at the time, focusing on digital workforce development, infrastructure, clean energy, critical minerals, and artificial intelligence collaborations. These discussions aligned the US Digital Transformation with Africa initiative, with Kenya's National Digital Master Plan to enhance inclusive digital skills access. The summit also facilitated valuable business matchmaking, including Walmart's 24 exploratory meetings with agricultural producers and apparel manufacturers. On the margins of the summit, AmCham Kenya convened a productive post-summit breakfast that brought together 9 AmChams across Africa, which included Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Ethiopia, Mozambique, Botswana, South Africa, and Nigeria. Together with the US Chamber of Commerce and US agencies such as USTDA, USAID, Foreign Commercial Service, Prosper Africa, and others, demonstrating AmCham's Kenya's leadership and enhancing the Pan-African cooperation framework. We remain committed to building on the momentum generated and continuing our efforts to accelerate trade and investment between the US, Kenya, and East Africa. The next AmCham Business Summit is slated for 2026. Stay tuned for dates in the coming months. On advancing bilateral trade, our trade advocacy included key roundtable partnerships with the US Embassy, bringing together congressional staff delegates from the House Ways and Means and Senate Finance Committees with AmCham members to advance the Strategic Trade and Investment Partnership, known as STIP, negotiations across digital trade, agricultural biotechnology, anti-corruption measures, and inclusive development. On agricultural trade, AmCham held several high-level engagements. We facilitated market entry discussions between the US Dairy Export Council and Kenya stakeholders as part of the USDEC's expanded focus on the African market. Additionally, we hosted a productive dinner which connected 12 US State Departments of Agriculture representatives with senior executives from AmCham-affiliated financial institutions to explore agricultural financing solutions and collaboration opportunities. Additionally, we welcomed Nebraska Secretary of State, Bob Evans' trade delegation, which established valuable connections for our members with potential partners in agribusiness, healthcare, cybersecurity, and workforce recruitment. This further enhanced state-level commercial relations between the US and Kenya. AmCham also facilitated the Doing Business with the USA panel at the Cliff International Investment Conference. in partnership with USAID's Africa Trade and Investment Program. We also collaborated with the Council of East Africa AmChams to launch a virtual webinar series targeted at SMEs, featuring insights from successful exporters across East Africa and providing small businesses with practical strategies for entering the US market. On the African Continental Free Trade Area, we enhanced member knowledge through an update forum featuring expert speakers from AfCFTA Secretariat and Kenya's Ministry of Trade, who discussed continental investment protocols. This was complemented by a specialized webinar in collaboration with AmCham South Africa that unpacked the Foreign Extortion Prevention Act implications for the US. Investors operating in African markets addressing the significant 2023 legislation and introduces new compliance considerations for cross-border business activities. Fourthly, members' policy advocacy. Throughout 2024, AmCham strengthened its relations with policymakers, the government, and key stakeholders across the business ecosystem. We made 12 targeted policy and regulatory submissions to the government of Kenya and facilitated 34 strategic advocacy engagements with Kenyan and US government officials. These efforts address critical issues, including tax reform, economic policy, and investment conditions. A significant milestone was AmCham's invitation to serve as a key member of the Business Reforms Committee under the Ministry of Investment, Trade, and Industry. That initiative is to create an investor-friendly business environment. In the aftermath of the finance bill demonstrations, AmCham facilitated a pivotal dialogue between US Ambassador Meg Whitman and our membership to evaluate the private sector's response to the demonstrations. This high-level engagement provided a platform for members to articulate sector-specific impacts, voice policy concerns, and share strategic adaptations implemented during this challenging period. Ambassador Whitman expressed a strong commitment to supporting AmCham interests in Kenya, acknowledging the crucial role of private sector stability in bilateral economic relations. AmCham also maintains strong engagement with the Finance and Planning Committee of Parliament by participating in consultative sessions to represent the business interests of its members. AmCham delivered presentations on critical fiscal policies affecting foreign investment, securing commitments from the committee's leadership to address barriers impacting foreign investors in Kenya. These strategic interactions positioned AmCham as a significant voice in national fiscal and tax policy discussions, while strengthening our relationships with key legislative stakeholders. Lastly, several of our recommendations were successfully incorporated into the final legislation on the tax and business laws amendment bills. Our submissions, which focused on harmonizing digital taxation frameworks and national tax policy, addressing business climate issues and proposals on special economic zones reform, received particular attention from lawmakers. This reflects our effective advocacy in creating a more predictable and equitable business environment for member companies while supporting Kenya's broader economic objectives. We continue strengthening our sector policy task force in health, digital economy, agriculture, manufacturing, tax, and energy and infrastructure. These groups have been instrumental in surfacing sector-specific business climate issues and engaging government and policymakers to advocate for policy, regulatory, and legislative reforms. AmCham's Health Task Force has focused on supporting the universal health coverage agenda. The Manufacturing Task Force has established a robust agenda centered on green manufacturing, local and responsible sourcing, and transition to a circular economy. The Digital Task Force established an AmCham Ministry ICT Technical Working Group to strengthen collaboration and accelerate Kenya's digital transformation. Fostering community bonds. We continue to strengthen our community bonds while facilitating valuable networking opportunities. We hosted several networking cocktails throughout the year. The 2024 AmCham Golf Open provided members and guests with an energetic platform for relationship building among business among business leaders, while our Thanksgiving dinner offered a poignant evening of celebration and gratitude, doubling as a farewell tribute to Ambassador Meg Whitman, whose leadership significantly advanced US-Kenya relations and the investment climate reform agenda. In conclusion, on behalf of the board, I'd like to express in absentia my sincere gratitude to the former US Ambassador to Kenya, Ambassador Meg Whitman, the teams and agencies at the US Embassy, including Foreign Commercial Service, FCS, Economic Section, USAID, Prosper Africa, USTDA, and Foreign Agriculture Service, whose incredible partnership have been instrumental to our success in advancing the US-Kenya commercial relationship, promoting trade, championing business climate reforms, and fostering enduring connections. I'm also grateful to the government of Kenya and its various ministries and agencies, including Ministries of Investments, Trade and Industry, ICT and Digital Economy, Agriculture, Health, Energy and Petroleum. And last but certainly not least, the Kenya Investment Authority, who have been crucial partners and interlocutors in our business climate reform agenda and investment promotion. Special thanks to the US Africa Business Center at the US Chamber of Commerce for their strategic engagement and shared commitment to advancing US-Kenya trade and investment. My heartfelt appreciation also goes to my fellow board members for their unwavering dedication and guidance. I especially want to acknowledge the entire AmCham Secretariat, Martha Ndegwa, Judy Mwanzia, Presi Akinyi, Derek Vikiru, and of course our CEO, Maxwell Okello, for their tireless efforts in implementing our vision and serving our members. Most importantly, I extend my deepest thanks to you, our members. Your continued engagement, support, and trust have been the foundation of our success. We deeply value your commitment to our community. Together, we have achieved remarkable progress in 2024, and I'm confident that with your continued support, we'll reach even greater heights in the year ahead. Thank you very much. I'll now turn it over to Maxwell to give an overview of our 2025 priorities. Maxwell, over to you.
Thank you
and I
very
have to say, Maxwell is not with us in the room. Maxwell is in the US representing AmCham in an important forum. But Maxwell, I know we've woken you up in the middle of the night. Please, over to you.
Yeah, I am certainly awake, and a very good morning to everybody. So thank you, Peter, for those remarks. Before I give my report, my presentation, I would like to move that we adopt the President's report. And so I'm going to ask for a proposer and a seconder.
I propose.
Elizabeth has proposed. Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Filana. And so that stands adopted. Members of the board, AmCham members, ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to present our priorities for 2025, building on the remarkable achievements that we managed to achieve last year. From a strategic focus perspective, for 2025, we are looking at 4 key priorities. Some of them are ongoing, some of them are new, and the 4 are the continued advocacy for business climate reforms, leadership on the US-Kenya investment promotion, building up our membership value and growth, and the 4th one is championing sustainable business. I will expound on each briefly. So for advocacy for business climate reforms, we will intensify our policy, regulatory, and legislative advocacy work to create a more transparent, predictable, and competitive business environment. This will include engaging proactively with Kenya government stakeholders to address policy and regulatory challenges affecting our members. Secondly, we will strengthen our sector task forces in health, digital economy, agriculture, manufacturing, tax, and energy and infrastructure. These are our pointed tip of the spear when it comes to policy engagement and are key for us surfacing those regulatory policy and legislative issues and actually coming up with proposals and recommendations that we engage policymakers on. And then the third thing that we're going to do under this is to continue developing evidence-based policy positions that are balanced and progressive. And some of you would remember that we held two roundtables, one in agriculture and one in health, where we presented policy position papers that were grounded on research, where we done policy or should I say sector diagnostics that we would then present to members and have dialogue around with policymakers and government officials in the room. And all these advocacy efforts will always aim to ensure that AmCham continues to be that trusted and influential voice in shaping Kenya's business landscape. The second priority area on leadership on US-Kenya investment promotion. The shifting geopolitical and trade landscape and headwinds due to the civil protests last year have inevitably chilled investment. However, as AmCham, we will continue to amplify Kenya as a favorable investment decision, working in concert with the US Embassy, KenInvest, and others. This will include advocating for a comprehensive trade agreement with the US, including the ongoing support for the renewal of AGOA. And then secondly, it will be important for us to establish and build relationships with the new US administration to foster greater commercial and economic opportunities. It's actually part of the reason why I am in the US as we speak. These efforts will be key for continued FDI attraction and supporting our members' business development objectives. On membership value and growth, we aim to continue growing and deepening our community. In response to feedback from members, we will continue to strengthen our membership value by 1, enhancing membership engagement through high-value networking opportunities and business connections. This is an area that we are receiving consistent feedback on, that we need to have more of your informal networking type of engagements, just to bring members together and allow them to exchange business cards and develop those commercial bonds. Secondly, expanding our portfolio of knowledge-sharing platforms, forums, and resources to meet the ever-evolving needs of our members. And then thirdly, creating relevant engagement platforms for different business segments and membership categories, from your multinational corporations to the emerging SMEs, a category that we're very keen to keep growing within our membership. And then the fourth area on championing sustainable business, AmCham will continue to champion good business through our Force for Good initiative. We will advocate for responsible business practices that balance economic, social, and environmental considerations. 2, we will amplify sustainability and social impact as an imperative that is led by AmCham members. So the various social impact initiatives that members are engaged in, we would be keen to hear more about that and showcase that as part of what our network is doing in the sustainability space. And then thirdly, drive thought leadership and catalyze the adoption of sustainability as a core business practice across the broader business community. So our objective here is not to limit this initiative to just our members, but to see who else within the broader business ecosystem that is of like mind that we can walk this journey with. Excuse me. So for 2025, there's some key programs that we'll be looking at. One of them is clearly around policy and regulatory reform, various roundtables that we're looking at hosting. We've already hosted several. We'll keep building on that. And the whole idea is we want to be very targeted. We want to be strategic in our dialogues between government and industry. and make sure that we are staying relevant and at the cusp of the key issues that are impacting not just our members, but also the broader economy as a whole. Secondly, we are working very closely with the public diplomacy section of the US Embassy, who are funding a US-Kenya Creative Economy Forum to be held in June of this year. This initiative is to promote the growth and collaboration in the creative industries, recognizing the growing importance of this sector in the US-Kenya bilateral trade. I'm sure some of you already have received invitations for this. Thirdly, working with KenInvest as part of the tripartite MOU that we signed in 2023, we plan to host a business forum on the margins of the UNGA Assembly later in September, leveraging that as a platform to showcase investment opportunities in Kenya to US investors. The AmCham Force for Good series that I've talked about, programmatic expansion around that, and just being able to drive and promote best practice is something that we will be looking at. But I think also importantly, the aspects of knowledge sharing within that particular gambit. And then the fifth one is one that we will be tracking closely. We want to make sure that we stay relevant as AmCham to high-level engagements with the Trump administration. So whenever those opportunities come, we won't just wait for them, but we will also proactively, with the support of the US Embassy and the US Chamber in DC, proactively reach out to and forge strong relationships with the new US administration to ensure that we have continuity and growth in US-Kenya commercial ties. So in conclusion, 2025 presents both challenges and opportunities. The challenging global geopolitical landscape, along with what has now been dubbed as a reset of international trade, continues introducing dynamics that will shape our operating environment. AmCham will closely track developments to ensure that we keep members updated with relevant information. We remain committed to creating economic opportunities and transforming lives through trade and investment. With your continued support, members, your engagement, I am confident that 2025 will be another successful year for AmCham. I thank you for your trust and your partnership. With that, I would like to hand over to Susan Sawe, our board treasurer, to guide us through the next agenda item, which is the financial report. Thank you.
Thank you, Maxwell. Good morning, board members, and good morning to all our members. It is a pleasure to talk to you today to give you an update of our financial performance as at end of 31st December 2024. If we can move straight to the slides, I'm happy to report, as had been mentioned by our board chair, our top line from a revenue perspective doubled to 294 million. And this was really driven by a couple of things. Being a trade association, our mainstay is on our subscription. And at this juncture, I want to thank all the members for coming through and paying their subscriptions on time. So our subs income was up 13%. And following on very closely is our event income. As mentioned by the chair, our excellent summit that happened in March, we had an event income that was up 145%. And then the grant income, and this was really driven by the USAID program that we were supporting, was up 127%. It was really driven by the milestones that we are able to meet. I want to call on members that this has now been closed. We will not be renewing it with all the changes that are happening in the US. But as we close out on the outstanding milestones, we will continue to see a bit of the money that we are holding to enable us close on these milestones. Looking at our operating surplus, this was up 40%. However, our final surplus for the year was really affected by the tax, and that was mentioned by the president. We had to pay about 23 million because of the changes in the tax regime. And also looking at our FX gains from the previous year, because of the macro environment and the change in terms of where the shilling was and the appreciation that happened, this also affected our FX gains and losses, as you will see in the signed numbers. Moving on to the expenses, this was really driven by the event costs that we have mentioned, because it goes hand in hand with the revenue as it comes through. And then on the balance sheet, we had a 25% year-on-year growth, just demonstrating the solid asset base that we have underpinning our operational strength. Moving on to the cash flows, our cash and cash equivalent is very strong. We have continued to invest. And as you saw on our other income, which was up 48%, this was driven by the high interest rate regime that we saw. We moved from about 10% all the way to about 18%. We've seen that now decline, so we will see a reduction this year in our interest income. However, the 48% is really driven a lot by the amounts that we invest very well. We are collecting on time, thanks to the members, so we will continue to see the billing happening on time and the payments coming through on time, and this just demonstrates a healthy cash flow that is sustainable. So we believe that we are very sustainable to the future. That is really a summary. I will request our auditors, Bekatili, to come and give their opinion, if you can move to the last slide, on our financials. These are the auditors who looked at our numbers.
Good morning, board members and members of AmCham. My name is Zachary from Bekatile. I'm attending this annual general meeting together with my colleague Cecilia. And we are here to provide the audit opinion. Bekatile were the auditors for the year ended that 1st December 2024. And we audited the balance sheet, profit and loss account, statement of changes in equity and cash flow, and also we looked at the notes. We want to give an assurance that we obtained the necessary explanation and we reviewed the documents that were presented to us to help us make an opinion. And we can confirm that the numbers that have been presented to you by the treasurer are free from material misstatement. And we are therefore give an opinion, which is a modified opinion. That's to say that the financial statements are not qualified. And the audit opinion was signed by the partner responsible for this engagement on 22nd April 2025. Thank you. And we also express our willingness to continue as auditors for the next financial year.
Thank you, Bekatile. We appreciate the support throughout the year. And now we are going to open up to members for any Q&A, any questions that you might have. Please just raise your hand and we are ready to take the questions. Any questions, members, or any comments? Please feel free to unmute and ask. All right, 3, 2, 1. I will assume there are no questions. A big thank you to our accountants who are in the room, who support us, Paul and team. Thank you so much for all the support that you continue to give us. At this point, I will hand it back to Scribe Services for the next item on the agenda. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, both Treasurer Susan, for that presentation. And members, I'd like at this point then, in the absence of any questions, to ask for a proposer to propose the adoption of the annual report and audited financial statements for the year ended 31st December 2024. Can I have a proposer, please?
Good afternoon, President Alfred here. I hereby propose for the adoption.
Thank you, Alfred. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Daniel. And so the annual report and audited financial statements for the year ended 31st December 2024 are hereby adopted. Thank you very much, members. We then now move to agenda item number 5, which is election of the Board of Directors. So the following directors who retire on rotation in accordance with Article 55 of the company's Articles of Association and being eligible offer themselves for re-election as directors of the company. So members, there were 3 members who would have been due for re-election. The first one is Philana Mugenyi, representing GE Healthcare. The second is Alfred Olajide, representing Coca-Cola Central, East, and West Africa. Aida Asin, who was representing Johnson & Johnson, resigned on 31st January 2025. And although she would have been eligible for re-election, she'd already resigned from the board and moved on to other roles. So for today's election, we've got 2 board members offering themselves for re-election. That is Philana Mugenyi and Alfred Olajide. Just to alert members that there were no qualifying nominations that we received pursuant to the request for nomination annexed to the notice for the meeting. And Scribe Services can confirm that when they come in after me. So really, we are looking at 2 board members offering themselves for re-election, no qualifying nominations being received. So in effect, nobody opposing the re-election of these 2 members. So I'll hand it over to Scribe Services to read statement on election and give guidance on the election process.
Thank you, Chair. And on behalf of Scribe Services, the company secretaries, I confirm that as at the 5th of May, the date for receiving nominations, there were no additional members who were validly nominated. Consequently, to fill the 3 vacancies, the continuing board members, Philana Mugenyi and Alfred Olajide, having been validly nominated, are automatically re-elected as members of the board. The board will give guidance and take on how to fill the remaining vacancy in the course of its business. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So on that basis then, given the guidance by Scribe, Philana Mugenyi and Alfred Olajide stand elected in the absence of any nominations that would have been considered. All right, so thank you very much. We move on then to agenda item number 6, which is to reappoint Bekatili Merali as the auditors of the company for the year 2025 and to authorize the directors to fix their remuneration. So I'll hand it over to Susan as our treasurer to
Thank you.
hopefully propose that we retain the auditors.
I'll request the auditors to step out so that we can handle this business.
So auditors, you're being chased out briefly. Hopefully by the time you come, you will have been re-elected. Let's give it a minute for our auditors to step out.
All right, thank you, members. And at this point, I would like to propose continuation of our current auditors. That's Bekatili Merali for the year 2025. And I would also like to request the directors to authorize to fix their remuneration. Over to you,
Okay,
Chair.
so
I second, Susan, I second that, your proposal, because you need a seconder, don't you?
just to be clear, I think what Susan is doing as a treasurer is recommending that we reappoint the auditors, having been. So what Susan is doing as our treasurer is to recommend to us as members
Yes.
to consider reappointing the auditors, having been satisfied with their performance. So I still need a proposer and a seconder.
Yeah.
So can I ask somebody to propose to reappoint our auditors?
President, I proposed.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Can I have a seconder? Can I have a seconder?
President, I second.
And who is speaking, please? Is
This is the last.
that Caroline?
That's
Okay.
Filana.
Caroline.
Is that
Is it
Filana?
Caroline?
Okay.
Yeah.
It's Filana. Thank you, Filana.
Filana.
Thank you, Filana. Thank you very much. So our auditors, Bekatili Merali, are confirmed elected to serve for the year 2025.
Thank you, Martha. You can ask them to come in. Martha, please ask them to come in. Okay.
So members, I think having dispensed with the reappointment of our auditors who are working back in, Bekatili Merali, just for your own information, you've been re-elected to serve for the year 2025. So congratulations to you, and we look forward to the level of service that you've been able to provide to AmCham in 2024. So well done and congratulations. Members, we then move to the last agenda item, which is to discuss any other business. And in accordance with our rules, I'll ask Scribe to confirm whether we received any notice of any other business so that we can then prosecute it. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. I confirm that we have not received any notice. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. In the absence of any other business or AOB, any notice of any other business, I would like to bring this, our 18th AGM to a close and to thank all of you, the board members and the members and our secretariat, our auditors and Scribe Services, our company secretaries, for the continued support and your dedication and commitment to continuing to advance the business agenda and the objectives of AmCham. And to really wish you well for the rest of this year, 2025. Let's continue to do our parts in our roles to advance what AmCham stands for. And there's a lot to do in the year ahead. We've done a lot in the last year. There's yet more to do. But I have every confidence in all the parties that support AmCham to be able to execute on our mandate in the year 2025 and get even better success. Thank you very much, all of you, for attending the 18th AGM of AmCham. Have a good day and have a very good rest of 2025. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.